Hello, and welcome to Module 1, Tools and Equipment. We all know that having the right tool and materials is key when creating. In this module, we will explore the various tools and equipment you will need to create a stained glass art piece. At the end of this module, you will be able to identify and choose stained glass tools. Let's start with the most popular tool, the glass cutter. A glass cutter is essential for all stained glass artists. They come in many varieties, like these pencil type. A pencil grip cutter looks just like a pen or a pencil and is held in the same way. A pencil grip cutter has a hollow barrel to dispense oil to keep the blade lubricated. An oiled cutter creates a smoother score line. The pencil grip cutter allows for greater control and is ideal for intricate pieces. This is a steel wheel glass cutter and is held the same way as a pencil grip. There is no reservoir to hold cutting oil, so you'll need to periodically add a little oil to the wheel to keep it lubricated. In addition to the cutting wheel, there is also a glass breaking tool at the other end to tap the glass at the score line. The steel wheel is the most economical of all cutters. The pistol grip cutter pictured here was designed to be comfortable. The acrylic pistol grip is shaped to fit the groove of your fingers while holding it. Like the pencil grip, the pistol grip has a barrel to hold the cutting wheel that self-lubricates the wheel. Pistol grip cutters are beneficial when you are cutting for long periods of time. Though there are many different types of cutters, all work on the same principle. All cutters have a small wheel, either tungsten carbide or steel, that will roll across the glass to score it, making it easier to break cleanly. Overall, I recommend the pencil type cutter on the far left. It is self-lubricating and has greater control for when you make those intricate cuts. You may also want the pistol grip cutter on the far right for when you make long scores on large pieces of glass. You will need two types of pliers. Running pliers used to break the glass along score lines you created with your glass cutter, and grozing pliers, which we use to trim small fragments of glass after breaking. Pictured here are grozing pliers, and they are a particularly useful tool. They have two purposes. You can use them as breaking pliers by lining up the ends of the pliers along your score line and then snapping it. Or, as you can see in this picture, you can use the serrated edges to remove stubborn pieces of glass that are left over during the cutting process. Running pliers are used to snap apart pieces of stained glass after it has been scored. They come in many different brands and types. Some are plastic and some are metal. I prefer the metal, with plastic coated jaws like the ones you see here. Good running pliers have a screw on the top. The screw is for setting the jaw to the proper width for the different types of glass that you will encounter. Copper foiling is the process by which the fine edge of a piece of stained glass is wrapped with a continuous strip of copper foil. Because solder will not stick to glass, foiling each piece establishes a surface to which the solder can adhere. Copper coil is available in an assortment of colors. Copper foil with a standard copper back, black backed foil, silver backed foil, and double-sided silver foil. If you're using opalescent glass in your project or glass you can't see through, then the color of foil doesn't really matter. But if you're using any kind of glass that is transparent, then it's best to use foil that will match the patina of your project. So if you want your solder joint to be black, then you'd use black backed solder. And if you wanted copper, then you would use copper backed solder, and so on. The next tool we would discuss is the soldering iron. The first thing we want to consider in choosing the best soldering iron for stained glass is to select one with a wattage output of at least 80 watts. The wattage output determines the amount of heat that they will produce. Any less than 80 watts and the iron will not heat up solder fast enough to use on our stained glass projects. Make sure your soldering iron has a chisel type tip, like the one you see here, to distribute the solder evenly and consistently over your stained glass piece. Look for a soldering iron with a variable temperature control, called a rheostat. A rheostat, like the one pictured here, gives you greater control over the tip temperature of your iron. A soldering iron is useless without solder. Solder for stained glass construction is a tin-lead alloy. There is 60-40 solder, which you see on your left. This is 60% tin and 40% lead. This solder is usually used for copper foil stained glass projects. There is also 50-50 solder, which you see on your right. 50-50 solder stays liquid a lot longer than 60-40 solder. For us, I recommend the 60-40 solder for your stained glass pieces, as the quicker cooling time produces that nice rounded solder seam that is desired in copper foil pieces. In order to get a proper bond between our solder and our copper foil, we need to use a product called flux. Flux is a chemical compound that is used to bond metals. Flux is important as it removes any residue that is formed on the surface of your copper foil, and it prevents oxides from forming while you are soldering by removing the exposure to air. Solder will not adhere to oxidized metal, so using flux is extremely important. I recommend using stained glass liquid flux, as you can easily brush it on in the quantity that you need. For stained glass artists, choosing the best grinder is the most important decision to make. It will also be your largest initial investment. While the grinder is technically an optional tool, you could use a diamond file. Having one makes a huge difference in both the amount of time you will need to finish a project and the quality of your final work of art. A stained glass grinder is basically a work surface with a circular spinning bit protruding upwards. This bit is a diamond-coated cylinder that spins very rapidly. You should choose a grinder with at least 3,450 revolutions per minute, or RPMs, with a working surface area of at least 9 to 10 inches on top. I use an inland grinder, which is a great grinder at an economical price of between $100 to $150. The last tool that's a necessity for your stained glass project are these safety glasses. This is an example of safety glasses. I like these because it has the side panel on it. And since you're going to be working with glass, it's imperative to wear these safety glasses anytime you're cutting the glass, or especially anytime you're grinding the glass. I can't stress enough how important it is to wear these safety glasses. Even if your grinder has a shield on it, so you can look down, please still wear the safety glasses, because those shields tend to not be quite large enough, and believe it or not, glass will ricochet if your blade on your grinder is spinning fast enough. So please wear safety glasses at all time. The old adage, you only have one set of eyes, is true. They're the last tool that I'm going to go over that's a necessity. And next we're going to go over a couple nice to have tools. Now here's two nice to have tools, but not necessarily imperative that you buy them. The first is on the left, and they're called pattern shears, and they're used by some people to cut out pattern pieces. They're supposed to leave the correct space that goes between each pattern to allow room for the foil. It takes about a 1/4 inch piece of the paper out if you put right on the center of the pattern piece. That way your project doesn't grow by just using a regular pair of scissors. They're nice to have, but they're not a necessity. You can use regular scissors to cut out your pattern. Just cut out both sides of the centerpiece. It takes a little bit longer, but it's a lot cheaper than using those pattern shears. The second one on the right is a burnishing tool. And what the burnishing tool does is it's designed to press down the foil so there are no gaps between the foil and the glass when you fold it on the glass. Nice to have as well. You don't really need it. You can use a credit card, substitute a credit card for it. You can use popsicle sticks. You can use a small wooden dowel. You can any one of those things just to press down on the copper foil to get a good seal. So these two things are nice to have, but not a necessity. So when you're buying your first kit, if your kit doesn't include these, don't feel obligated to buy them. As long as you have a pair of scissors and a credit card lying around, you should be fine. Now for a tool that I don't believe you do need. And what you're looking at now is a glass cutting bandsaw. Now professionals will use this if they're making large stained glass pieces and they want to cut multiple pieces of glass at the same time, because it's a lot quicker for them to do that. They're commercial, they're trying to turn a profit, so speed is of the essence for them, because the faster they can turn out stained glass pieces, the more money they're going to make. Some stained glass shops will try to sell you this, saying that it will help you get those really intricate pieces of glass. You don't need this. A glass cutter and your pliers, your Grosing pliers, you can cut very intricate pieces of glass. You don't need the bandsaw. If the bandsaw, if it cuts too intricate a piece of glass, then you actually ruin the structural integrity of the glass piece you're making, and it's going to crack after it's in the window anyway. So look at the glass cutting bandsaw as a commercial type use. If you become really in depth in stained glass and find that this is a really serious hobby for you, maybe you want to consider it a little bit later. But as a beginner, I would stay away from this. It's just a waste of money. And that ends Module 1, an introduction to stained glass tools and supplies. Please visit our useful links page for a complete supply list and recommended sources to supply. Feel free to review this module again if needed. There is a short test for this module located underneath the icon. You will receive your score at the end of the test, and your instructor will receive a copy as well. You must achieve an 80% to pass. Please do not progress to Module 2 until you satisfactorily pass Module 1. Thank you.